Hey everyone, Katie here. Thanks for coming back for our second episode. I wanted to remind you about our sign-off contest real quick. Come up with a cool sign-off for Sharon and I to use at the end of each show, and you're gonna win a heart-shaped box or a heart box and a skull cameo made by yours truly. The sign-off has to be short and sweet, applicable to the situation, preferably funny, but most definitely awesome. The deadline for that contest is coming up pretty quick. It's Friday, April 18th. So if you can think of something witty and cool to say at the end of our podcast for Sharon and I, please email your submission to two artsygals at gmail.com. That's TWOARTSYGALS at gmail.com. And in the title of that email, please indicate that it is your contest entry. We will be announcing the winner on our Facebook page on Monday, the 21st of April, and we will start using that and mention your name in our 5th podcast when we record it. So, good luck to you, and here's the episode.
Unicorns and glitter and taxidermy critters are just some of the things they like. They also enjoy 80s hair bands, Grizzly Adams and John Goodman, so if you think that's weird, then you can take a hike. But the things they enjoy the most are making art and cracking jokes, so without further ado, here are your hosts. You've got your two artsy gals, here are your two artsy gals.
Hi, and welcome to our second podcast. I'm Katie, and this is my wonderfully awesome co-host, Sharon.
Hi.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about what mixed media art is. So, which I'm sure most people that would be listening to this already are familiar with mixed media art, but just in case, I kind of wanted to give examples within the parameters of our show, so people understand what we're talking about and what to expect. And one thing that right off the get-go, I kind of want to address, just because there's a debate about what art is exactly in the art community, and I just want everyone to understand that within the context of what we're talking about and doing on this show, art is just art. I'm not going to argue if mixed media is craft or art or anything like that, but I've heard this argument, and I kind of looked up let me double check on my browser, Merriam-Webster definition of art, and for the purposes of this podcast, this is what we're going to go with, which is, something that is created with imagination and skill, that is beautiful, or that expresses important ideas or feelings. Works created by artists, paintings, sculptures, etc., that are created to be beautiful or to express important ideas or feelings. So, that's what we're going with for this. I'm not going to argue the difference between art and craft. And for the record, crafts are objects, according to Merriam-Webster, are objects made by skillful use of the hands. So really, it's all kind of there. Now that we know what art we're talking about, I kind of just wanted to give a brief definition of mixed media, what mixed media is. And again, most people will know this, but some might be new to this idea. But just for the purposes of this podcast, mixed media is exactly what it sounds like. Media, if you don't know, is paint or pencil or watercolor paints or paper. Anything that you're using to create the image that you're making is a media. And simply put, mixed media is using different media to accomplish your art piece. So it could be, using pencil and paint in a painting, or you could use a lot of different things, but it's just, that's what it is. It's exactly what it sounds like. So, do you have anything to add to that? I got kind of rambly, but...
No, I think that's really great. I think that, craft and art can really bleed into each other. I like that description.
Yeah. Because I know I've kept an art blog for several years, and I think that over time, over the time that I've had the blog, I've had a few people, nasty comments, but you know what? Nasty comments are nasty comments. So, but there are people that are pretty purist about their view of art and think that the only art is fine art, and that anything that anyone else does should be considered craft and lesser for some reason. So, but again, I don't want to get into that argument. I just wanted to clarify for the purposes of this podcast. That's what we're calling art, and that's what mixed media is. So I thought we'd start off today by giving examples of some of our favorite mixed media artists. I'll let you go ahead and go first, Sharon, because I'm not familiar with the person that you're going to introduce us to.
Well, the person that I'm going to introduce you to is Kelly Ray Roberts. She is a Portland artist. She uses a lot of female images, women's faces, birds, wings, and quotes and sayings, inspirational quotes and sayings. She does a lot of layering on her canvases with paints and papers, textures, creating textures with ribbons or lace or fabric and pulling away those things from the paint, pushing paint in, pulling paint back, and just a lot of layering like a lot of mixed media paintings are. The reason I chose her is I just think that she's really inspirational because she's a female artist. She's from Portland, where I was from, born and raised. She's a mother, and I just really like a lot of the words that she uses in her art. They're just really inspirational, and I like some of the faces that she uses. They're very feminine, but some of them can be kind of dark or mysterious, and some of them can just be lighthearted. So that was the artist that really inspired me, and I think I go to her a lot for inspiration as far as my mixed media work. I don't think any of my mixed media really looks like hers, but I feel like I can be really inspired by her work.
That's great. Do you want to give our listeners the URL to her website so that they can go check out some of her work?
Sure. It's kellyrayroberts.com, and it's KELLYRABERTS.com.
Awesome. And does she sell her artwork on her website, or does she sell any products, or what does she do out in the world?
She sells a lot of her products online. You can actually find her products all over Portland and probably throughout the United States at this point. A lot of her images are at this point on bags, mugs, magnets, bookmarks, journal covers. I see her stuff up here in the Olympic Peninsula, and I know that her stuff is probably just about everywhere. So you can find her things online. You can find her things around the Portland area, Portland, Oregon. So take a look at her stuff. She's very inspirational.
That's awesome.
And she has a book out too.
Oh, what's the name of the book?
The book is, let me look, because now I'm embarrassed that I don't know it. Taking Flight.
Taking Flight.
To give yourself creative spirit and wings. It's a really inspirational book. It gives some techniques, but also talks about her process of becoming an artist and how she got to where she is now.
Cool. That's great. I think it's kind of funny before we even really talk to each other that we both picked Portland artists. So that's just where our heart lies. That's sweet. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm going to definitely check some more of her stuff out. I just kind of glanced at her website while you were talking about her, and it's really cute stuff. I like it a lot. And you're right. I think I have seen it around before at little boutiques and stuff around town, most definitely. It's really sweet, though.
Yeah, it's very cute.
I went a little darker because that's just the way I am, I guess. I don't know. Actually a Portland artist, like I said, his name is Davy Cadaver, I believe. And if I am pronouncing that wrong, I am super sorry, because that is a really morbid mispronunciation. So. But I think that's what it's meant to be pronounced like. And you can actually check him out at his website, and it's davycadaver.com, DAVYCADAVER.com. And he uses a lot of acrylic paints and pastels and pencil And it's really cool. And I've been meaning to go because he does a lot of Portland shows around, and he does a lot of live painting. He has live painting events where he sits and just kind of does it in front of the audience. But it's not worked out that it's been at a day or a time that I can go so far. But
cool.
Plus, I would really like to meet him because I'm really inspired by his darker work. And if you look on his website, it's kind of broken down into the series that he works on. But I actually discovered him. It was kind of funny. I'd never heard of him, but about 2 years ago, I did a round robin journal swap with a group of ladies, and a woman from Australia asked if I'd ever heard of him because she knew he was from Portland and I'm from Portland. And so she's the one that referred me to him on Facebook. And I've kind of been like Facebook stalking him for a couple of years now. He's a super nice guy and pretty down to earth, but I just really, I don't know, I just enjoy like the depth and layers and the color schemes that he uses. But I like the darker kind of twisted nature of his work too. But and I think it's really cool that we picked such different artists because it's a kind of a great example of how differently mixed media art can be done. So, I think it's really cool that you picked someone kind of on the light and cheery side and I picked someone on the gloomy dark side. That's kind of us though, so.
Yeah. Yeah. His stuff is great. I think it looks like there's a lot of texture that he brings with the painting, like adding maybe like scratching to his
he does. It looks like he does a lot of scratching and scraping. And definitely a lot of layering of the paints and pencils and stuff. It's funny, I recently asked my husband because I've been wanting to buy a print of one of his pieces. I think it's Bump in the Night is the one, or Sassafras Root. I think it was Sassafras Root that I asked my husband about. And the print sold out before we finished our discussion, but I showed it to my husband. He goes, "That's creepy. I don't want that hanging in the bedroom," because that's the spot that I envision it, like above our bed, because it's so long. And he's like, "No way. That's weird." So, but since I make the decorating decisions in our house, it will go in our room. So
it will. But that just goes to show, that how art can speak to different people, and how one thing can really speak to one person, and to another person it can be totally off-putting. They don't get the same interpretation. That's what's so great is that the artist.
And it's funny because it wasn't it that he didn't like it; it was that he didn't want it in the bedroom. That was his big thing. Like, what? That's scary for the bedroom. Like, can you put it above the couch? But yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And the artist may have one interpretation too.
Oh no, that's true. That's true. And I think, I really like, he's done, been in they've done quite a few interviews in Portland art magazines he's been in. So he likes to talk a lot about his process and his philosophies, and he's a really interesting guy too. So I urge everybody to check him out for sure.
Yeah, his stuff is great.
Yeah, but I just thought that would be kind of fun for us to talk about some of our favorite mixed media artists, and he's kind of the apple of my eye lately. Been checking his stuff out. So, but I also wanted to give examples of our artwork too. So, Sharon, did you want to talk about your examples real quick?
Sure. Some of the things that, some of my favorite pieces from I worked on a little bit ago were some canvases, small canvases and these are sort of inspired by Kelly Ray Roberts. I think just the layering that I used, where I painted some canvases with gesso and then added other layers, more layers of color, and then ended up adding some paper layers, coloring over those with colored pencils, adding some more paper paint, and then pulling back some of that paint to reveal some of the colors that were left behind by maybe the paper underneath, and then adding some little photographs that I'd taken of my chickens, actually, and then sort of drawing over those a little a little bit to make sure that they blended into the background of the painting. And then ended up adding some little gemstones to give some texture to them. And then words. Kelly Ray Roberts does that a lot, adds a lot of words. So I just added some little inspirational words to the canvases to finish them off. I had made a little grouping of 3. So 3 of my little different chickens. They all had the same color theme.
And are those pictures that you took of your own chickens?
Yes. Yeah.
That's
pictures
cool.
of my own chickens. Mm-hmm.
That's
yeah.
cool.
And then I really like to finish them off. Sometimes I'll go back on my pieces and we'll maybe outline things in black Uniball and then outline things with little white dots with the Uniball white pen, or, kind of outline them or put little dots and things like that to finish the pieces off.
That's cool. And actually, you mentioned to me that the Uniball pens before, and I wanted to write them down because I thought they looked really cool.
Yeah, they work really great. They stay on, you have to let them dry a little bit, but especially the white one, because I do such small dots, it's almost like a paint pen, but then the paint pens sometimes can just kind of explode and leave a bigger dot than you want. And this Uniball pen is really nice. It's kind of like a gel pen, and it'll just leave a nice crisp line or dot.
That's
really
cool.
nice.
That's a good point, too. A good tip, too. So
yeah,
we'll check those out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, of course, always you can go to our blog and look at photographs of everything that we talk about on the show. So we're going to try to be, I know it's kind of a challenge to talk about visual arts in a purely audio setting, but we're going to try to be as descriptive as we can so that you don't have to go to the blog and look at it if you don't want to. But anytime any of you listeners want to see what we're talking about, we will definitely have that posted on our blog, and I'll give that address at the end of the podcast for everyone. So you can go check it out. So yeah, but I was going to talk a little bit about, no, you have those, that's a 2-piece series, correct?
3-piece series.
3-piece. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And will you have photos of all 3 on the so we can put them up, or?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I thought it was just 2. That's awesome. And I've seen them, and they're super cute. So
thank you.
I really like them. I have a couple of examples that I was going to talk about. And the first one I want to use as an example just because I actually did it for a mixed media arts class that I took in college, and it was a final. So I did it about 3 years ago. It was, it's kind of a funny example because it was for a mixed media class. The challenge was to try to use as many media as we could in the piece of art. And we also, because I was in graphic design school, it had a purpose. So it wasn't just an art piece. It was to go on and become a magazine title page for an article. So basically,
cool.
we were supposed to go through magazines and find an article that we wanted to have inspire this piece of artwork. And I think the only magazine I ever have subscribed to is Cooking Light magazine. So I found something about America's Bounty or something. It was about farming and local farms and farmers markets and stuff like that. So I ended up using that article, and I used it on a piece of cardboard, and then I put the background for the whole thing is watercolor paper I attached to the cardboard, and I watercolor painted the sky with a little bit of bright sun. I wanted it to be bright and sunny like a summer sky. And I used some sponges to lift color out to make some little wispy clouds. And then the farm, to make like the crops in the fields on the canvas, I used a paper bag, and I crumpled it up and crumpled it up and crumpled it up a bunch because it becomes super soft and almost like fabric if you do that enough.
Oh,
and,
I love that technique.
Yeah, and so nice and soft. And I actually sewed it with my sewing machine. I love doing that kind of stuff, using my sewing machine in art. And I think it kind of creates a really neat texture too when you can like sew on paper.
Absolutely.
So I did that, and then I set that as a background, and then to make the crop rows, I made a bunch of little teeny tiny seed beads from Fimo clay and just rolled them in some acrylic paint and sewed those into little strips of coffee stained muslin. So they were kind of like the crop strips where you'd see the plants. And then in the foreground of the picture, I used little bits of cardboard box, and then I painted each of them. I think I attached a different type of paper to each one, and I painted some watermelons. Like I used acrylic paint in those, and I think maybe the oranges that are on the picture I used. And some of them I used watercolor pencils where you draw with them and then you go back over them with water and a brush, which I absolutely love those because I feel like I have a little bit more control of the watercolor with using the pencils.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Yeah, watercolors themselves, I kind of have a little bit of trouble, like, getting it as dark as I want it or as light as I want it and having it not blend together. So I'm not very good with those, and I also used, some chalk pastel and some oil pastel. And I think in the very front, the background underneath those was meant to be like a tablecloth. So it's blue cotton fabric, and I kind of penciled in some shading around the fruit and stuff. So really, I mean, it's kind of an extreme example of mixed media because that was the challenge, was to use so much media. So you don't have to, like, that's not a requirement, and it's not like a contest to see how much you can use in one piece ever. But I just thought it was an interesting example to kind of show our listeners, and they can go check that out again on the website. But I thought it was kind of neat to talk about. And it was a challenge I enjoyed that piece a lot because I like making things hard for myself, actually. I don't know why, I just do. I guess I like feeling challenged and giving myself a challenge. So it was figuring out how to get that much in, because I want to say we had a requirement of how many things we were even supposed to use in the piece. So I don't remember because it was so long ago, but I really enjoyed that. And once I figured out what I was going to do, it really kind of rose to the occasion on it. So. Wow,
it sounds like it, making the little beads yourself.
Yeah, that was kind of a pain in the butt.
Labor intensive.
I should have went to the bead store. But I think that was also one of those weird, like, I'm a night owl. And I kind of do my best work late at night, and that's when my brain is the most active. And so I get these little wacky ideas, and then all of a sudden I find myself doing stuff like rolling up clay like I'm rolling little boogers, and, in the middle of the night and poking needles through them. And there you go. You've got handmade seed beads. And
wow.
So it's kind of crazy. But yeah. And the other piece that I wanted to talk about, just because I wanted to give a more current example of some of the work that I do, I did this piece called Immaculate Incubation, and it was for a friend of mine. It was a gift for a friend because we kind of we'd known each other for, like, we called it our 20-year friendiversary. So, so we made each other little pieces of art in swap just for fun to celebrate that. I wanted to talk about that one because it's, I think, more representative of the work that I do now, but also because it had some interesting elements to it. So I used the epoxy resin clay, like I always do, in those kind of pieces to sculpt there's a skeleton, and it's mostly skull, and then you see rib cage. But I sculpted that with the epoxy resin clay, and then I actually used tissue paper and Mod Podge to kind of create the robe that she's wearing. So I just wet the tissue paper down with Mod Podge, and I use brushes and bamboo skewers and stuff to kind of arrange it and layer it so it looks like clothing on the skeleton. And then of course I painted that, and I usually only work in acrylic paint when I'm doing that kind of stuff because it's just more durable and it's easier to work with and it dries faster, and I'm super, super impatient when it comes to waiting for things to dry. So,
oh yeah.
The fun part of that one was I hollowed out an egg. You know how to do that when you blow the guts out of the egg. Have you done that before?
Yeah.
So for those that haven't, it's actually pretty fun. You just poke a pinhole in each end of the egg, and then you blow through it, and it blows the yolk and the white and everything out of the egg. So it's pretty neat. But I used that, and then in the hole, I kind of widened the hole a little bit. So I put it on the canvas, and I made the skeleton hands cradling the egg. But from the back side of the canvas, I cut a hole, and I wired an LED light into the egg, and wired it to a switch. So I just did a little LED circuit. So when you flick the switch on, on the back of the canvas, the egg kind of has this little glow from the inside. So it was turned out kind of neat.
Yeah, kind of spooky. That's neat.
Yeah, but I thought that was another kind of an interesting example of mixed media and things that you can use that aren't necessarily, like, you don't consider an egg an art supply or an art tool, but you can use anything. Like, I love being inventive like that, and I love artists that do that kind of stuff too, that are, I don't know, just make your own rules and kind of figure it out for yourself. So
absolutely. That is awesome. And I love anything with eggs.
I know. And I'm sorry, I get in the habit of, like, when I have friends that I know they like certain things, I get in the habit of getting, like, kind of overboard with the gifts that are in a theme. Because I'm a themey gal. I like a theme. So
I can do the same thing.
So that's kind of funny. I have another friend who likes bees. So I always buy her bee stuff. I don't think she's gotten tired of it yet, but I hope not. But I used to collect fairies when I was younger, and now that I'm older, I kind of don't anymore. It's not that I don't like them anymore. It's just I'm not 20 anymore. So
got over fairied.
Yeah, but there are a few people in my life that still buy me fairies when they see them, and I'm like, oh, thanks. I wish you would stop doing this.
Now they know.
Well, now they do, and I'm a dick. So. Oh, God. And yes, I apologize. That was a snort. So that's awesome, though. Yeah. So I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to add, Sharon, here today about mixed media art or anything like that.
No, I don't think so. I feel like we really covered things on what mixed media, what the hell is mixed media anyway?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Topic.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that anytime you have a question for us or a request, please send us an email or message us on Facebook. Let us know. We want your requests. We want show ideas if you have any ideas. Anybody that has any further comments about mixed media that are nice comments, we're welcome them, and this can be an ongoing discussion. We'll talk about tools sometimes. We'll talk about products and supplies that we like sometimes. We're going to be giving in our next episode, I believe, the next episode that we're going to record, we're going to be talking a little bit about textures, and Sharon and I are both going to give a little mini tutorial of methods that we like to use. All of those images will be on our blog site. If you want us to talk about something, give us a request. You can send those requests to our email address, which is 2artsygals@gmail.com, and that's all spelled out lowercase and would be TWO as in the number 2, artsygals, artsy with just a Y, @gmail.com. And you can look at images of the examples that Sharon and I talked about today and find links to the artists that we discussed today on our blog at 2artsygals.wordpress.com. And go check us out there. And you can also find us on Facebook and follow us there, and just search for 2 Artsy Gals on Facebook. Comment on our wall, send us messages there. We welcome any and all feedback, but we will ignore mean feedback. So, it's up to you if you want to be not nice. So I don't know though, Sharon, I think we kind of wrapped it up pretty good today, don't you?
Yeah, I think so.
Right on. Well, cool. That's our second episode in the bag, and we'll talk to you guys again here next week. So go make some cool stuff.
All right. See you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.